Here's another example of what I say again. This about a month ago. You don't hear about it. Back in 2024. This accident happened back in 2024 of July. It has gone viral again on X and took place during a young basketball game. During what appeared to be an ordinary lost ball situation, one player wearing a black jersey decided to make this everything but normal by heading stumping a player on the Filipino team to shock the horrors of those. This right here video is showing you how bad these young black kids are. Because one, they have no family figure in the family, no father, no doubt, no structure, no discipline, none of that shit. So let's go ahead and watch the video. But I bet you there's a white kid that did it to a black kid, you'll hear all over the damn news for a whole entire month. But you don't hear about that shit no more. But watch. You know why? Because the media, like CNN or them, don't want to play when black people do something wrong. They always want to play when white people do something wrong. But watch the video.
Outraged after a youth basketball player stomped another boy in the head. Happened in Alameda on Sunday during a game, and it was all caught on video. ABC 7 News reporter J.R. Stone has talked with families on both sides.
So there's a clip from a local news story from back in July of 2024 that is going viral again on X because people typically like to recycle old clips over there in order to get more engagement. And in this particular clip, we see an absolutely disgusting display that occurred in a game between 13-year-olds. One team was a representative of Filipino basketball players in the United States of America, and the other one appears to be an Alameda County team, which is the county that happens to contain the city of Oakland. And as you can see right there from the freeze frame from the local news, you have a black player on one of the teams head stomping one of the Filipino players after a loose ball situation. But one of the things that people are so aggravated about while listening to this news segment is the fact that the news is constantly framing this as a both sides situation, as an issue where you have to get the perspective from not just the person who was stomped in a completely non-basketball move, something that was wildly inappropriate, but from the side of the stomper and how that kid is being bullied, and how, of course, we need to get their side of the story, even though, again, you could see the video for yourself. And in addition to that, I actually ended up finding the original videos from multiple different angles without all the blurring that kind of obscures everything that's going on that's being played by the local news. And if it wasn't swaying you just by the blurred version of the clip, make no mistake about it, the actual full video will make it unambiguously clear that the black kid was 100% in the wrong in this case. And by the way, he gave the Filipino kid a concussion. Now look, we're going to break this down and we're going to talk about this because I missed this back in July of 2024 when it was a story. But before we get into that, I want to thank everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay?
I do think it's important to warn viewers that the video is a bit intense. This basketball game was about to end when all of this went down. There is a police investigation over what you're about to see here, as one 13-year-old player stomps on an opposing player's head.
He was down on the floor, and this kid just came and just stomped on him, and it's on his head.
So look, obviously this is an absolutely disgusting display of bad sportsmanship throughout the course of this particular game, and these teams have a little bit of a history together. Obviously this was in the waning seconds of the game, so likely the black team was losing to the Filipino team, and you can see the parents are absolutely devastated by these actions. And I need to make something clear to everybody out there in the audience: while fights do happen in basketball games, in sports games, they can be common. This is completely uncommon from what you would expect to see, because this is a non-basketball move. And by the way, I did promise you the unredacted footage of this. I am going to cut from the stomp because you guys don't need to see that level of brutality. Plus, YouTube's terms of service are pretty restrictive when it comes to that sort of thing, but you will see the damage in the local news segment that was inflicted upon this Filipino kid. But I just want you guys to get a sense of what actually went down in terms of the play, so we can break this down from a sports point of view to determine whether or not this was appropriate. But I just want you guys to know right off the jump, there's no great mystery here. This was wildly inappropriate. So So as you can see, the Filipino kid who is wearing the yellow jersey ends up tripping at some point in time while he has the ball. You have the first black player actually go for the ball. However, you can actually see from this particular video that even that black kid was ready to get into a fight with this Filipino kid, because as the ball trickles away, he starts going up and towards this Filipino kid's face. This is when number 10, our alleged hero who is defending his teammate, no, I'm not kidding about that, that is actually one of the things that is described by his side in the local news segment that we're going to cut back to, walks over and stomps on the head of the defenseless kid. And by the way, we have multiple angles of this. You can see it for yourself. Let me play you a different angle so you can understand how crazy this actually is.
All right, Darren, inbound to Seth. They're pulling.
Now again, there is some tussling between the black player wearing the number 3 jersey and the Filipino kid in the yellow jersey prior to the stomp happening, but this is like regular ordinary flailing among basketball players. Maybe if there was some contact from the Filipino kid to the face of the black kid, you could have called a foul on the Filipino kid, but of course, this is a loose ball situation, and again, if you're a regular ordinary sports fan, everything that appears to be going on for the most part between number 3 and the player on the ground with him is pretty standard fare. I mean, again, the likely result of this might even be a jump ball, but obviously things completely change when you have number 10 walk over and stomp on the head of this Filipino kid. A complete non-basketball move, something that goes beyond even a flagrant foul in my opinion, and rises to the level of criminal assault, and yet we have defenders of this in the local news segment that are seeking to mitigate the absolute savagery that was on display during the course of this basketball game. And again, the fact that this is a Filipino ethnic team comprised of players from around the country that are based in the Bay Area happens to make this all the more questionable, because of course we have the conversation specifically in the Bay Area about anti-Asian hate and specifically black violence against Asian people, and in this particular game we see a display of that black teen violence on an Asian player. But again, the damage is much more significant than you can possibly imagine, even with the local news blurring the face of the kid that was victimized.
Eva and Roderick Ginab say their son was playing on the Tumakbo United team, which is a Filipino-American youth team based in the Bay Area, with players from all across the U.S. Game took place Sunday at the College of Alameda versus Peyton's Place, another Bay Area team. There was a scuffle to get possession of the ball, then another player reacts.
You could clearly see the size of his shoe on his face.
So yeah, you can actually see from this photo the imprint of the shoe of the stomper on this kid's head. You have the family saying this is the first time he's ever had a concussion. Again, a concussion at age 13, playing a 13-year-old basketball game against another team, absolutely insane, and this was done via a stomping.
My son suffered concussion for the first time he played basketball.
The Ginabs say their son is now in concussion protocol and still dealing with headaches.
Not because of anything related to actual basketball gameplay, as this was a non-basketball move that occurred in this particular event. And yeah, this is the stage that is set for the local news media to start to get commentary from the other side, and from the family of the attacker in this particular case. And you're not going to believe the excuse making, or maybe you will believe the excuse making, that comes from the people who raised this kid who savagely stomped on somebody's face to the point where he gave him a concussion and left a sneaker imprint on his head.
The family of the other boy who did the stomping says that he was standing up for his teammate, who he believed had just been kicked and punched in this melee. Family members tell me the player for Peyton's Place is now being cyberbullied by adults online.
So look, I've watched this video and the unredacted video, which will be linked in the description of this video for you to check it out for yourself. And while there was some contact, obviously, with this loose ball scenario, the idea that there was an intentional kick or a punch to player number 3, the one in the jersey that was in the first part of going for the ball, thus this justified the head stomp, absolute madness in every possible way, and the idea that, again, the way you stick up for your teammate in the middle of a basketball game is with a head stomp is something that not even Draymond Green would probably endorse, although who knows, it was a black kid stomping on a little Filipino kid, and Draymond Green recently had an incident where he was angry that a ref called a foul on him because that ref was a white person. So yeah, it's kind of crazy that the family is actually defending this, that they're actually going to bat for their kid in an incident where he committed a violent felony assault that should result in criminal charges. Again, this is serious. Stomping on somebody's head like this could kill them. You could make a case for serious aggravated assault charges. The guy was also completely defenseless at this moment in time. It didn't see it coming. So we have a sucker stomp in this particular case, and the family is going to bat for him and also painting him as the victim, saying that he's being cyberbullied on the internet by adults who saw this play and were absolutely disgusted by it.
They also say he immediately left the gym after this because he was told to leave by an organizer. Peyton's Place team says the boy is, quote, seeking help to control his emotions, and he is not playing with the program at this time, end quote.
So look, being ejected from the arena after committing a felony, probably suitable. Maybe he should not have been ejected. The police should have actually been called and he should have been arrested on the spot. But this idea that we're supposed to feel bad for the kid who did the stomping because he's being cyberbullied on the internet.com. And by the way, this is the reason why the local news media is heavily redacting this particular video, so we can't see nor identify the people involved in this particular incident, is absurd in every possible way. And again, the idea that, oh, well, he's gonna go manage his anger or manage his emotions better, and that's somehow a fix. No, I'm not buying that. There needs to be some actual consequences for this. I'm not saying the kid needs to be locked up for the rest of his life, but yeah, something having to do with the criminal justice system in order to make sure he knows that this is totally unacceptable, because again, this is what he's doing in an organized sporting event where you're supposed to be on your best behavior in front of a crowd of people. Imagine what he does in a game of pickup basketball or something of the sort. And again, I don't feel sympathetic at all for this kid that he was removed from the team at this moment in time after he committed a violent and potentially deadly assault on another player, a defenseless player, during the course of a game. Again, this had nothing to do with the actual basketball game. The ball is actually away at this moment in time. He just saw an opportunity to stomp on a Filipino kid and then did it.
They also say they are saddened by what happened, adding, the behavior that was exhibited by our player is not acceptable and is being taken seriously.
Yeah, right.
Police say this is an ongoing investigation after the Ginobs filed a report.
Now look, the team actually says that this is unacceptable behavior, which is good. I'm happy they made that statement, but of course it comes after a bunch of mitigating statements about how the kid that did the crime is actually being bullied. The perpetrator in this instance is actually getting a lot of mean internet comments, and of course they're like, oh well, it's unacceptable, but think about it, he has to manage his emotions better, and the real issue is that he doesn't have enough social workers talking to him about managing his fee-fees. But in reality, he should manage his violent impulses better, and a good place to actually deal with people's violent impulses when they're so out of control like this is the criminal justice system. But of course, this happened at a time where Pamela Price was the Alameda District Attorney, so she was very likely to not prosecute this kid for anything, and maybe even give him some kind of an award or prize, or some kind of restitution for all the people that made comments like this. Now, of course, this came at a period of time where we saw many of these youth basketball stories, like that story of the black girl who clotheslined another player after being encouraged to do so by her mother throughout the course of a basketball game, and a bunch of other instances. So yeah, this is something that needs to be nipped in the bud, because this is unacceptable, and again, even making the excuse that he was protecting another player is absurd in every possible way, because he stomped on a defenseless player during a normal basketball play.
I think everyone was in shock. I think, we all kind of went on the court, went up to the coach of the other team to say, hey, what just happened? what's going on.
So yeah, I can imagine the coach being absolutely stunned by this, going over to the other coach and asking what the hell is going on, because in reality, Filipinos don't act like this. This is something completely atypical for them to see, but unfortunately, this is something that is excused oftentimes when the perpetrator of this behavior happens to be a black youth or a black teenager. Now, apparently, there were additional scuffles that weren't caught on video that resulted from this, so absolute chaos ended up being the result of this, and yeah, that makes sense. When you see a violent crime happen, people get angry, tensions get high, and yeah, it's pretty terrible.
Coaches tell me these players have played against each other several times over the years, both sides saying that race was not a factor here in anything that happened.
Now, the local ABC affiliate ends up wrapping up this segment by saying that there was no racial motivation behind this, and the reason, of course, they're saying this is because of the Stop Asian Hate movement that was popular in and around this time. But I just want to point out for everybody out there in the audience that even if it was 100% clear that there was no racial motivation behind a white teenager doing something similar to a black student or doing something similar to even a Filipino student, the local news segment would not end in this way. We would also not be getting the other side of the issue. We would not be hearing from the family members making excuses anonymously while we have the victim's family forced to put their face out there. But this is the world that we live in, and make no mistake about it, even though we are far removed from the year 2024, that kind of attitude still very prevalent in this country. So yeah, of course I want to know what you guys think about this down in the comments below.